there was a time when Yuengling's share of the market was much greater than any other large city. In every other large city, it was dominated by the three, but not in Philly. Now, Yuengling, to me, is a far superior product to Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Budweiser. And so then Monk's and other beer bars come along, and the jump from Yuengling to them was an easier jump for Philadelphians than other cities.
Definitely.
That's if I want to go a professor into a case study, I think that Philadelphia as the best beer city has some to do with Yuengling.
Welcome back to the Brew That Podcast. I'm your host, Richie Tevlin, as joined as always by Evan Blum. And tonight we have on Mike McCloskey, Associate Professor of Risk Management at Temple, owner of Interstate Drafthouse, and owner of Fishtown Iced Tea. Did I get it all?
Mm-hmm. The brand.
The brand. So we'll get into that. So there's a lot of things going on. We have the RTDs, we have, Temple connection, but then also, obviously, Interstate Drafthouse, a great beer bar in Fishtown. I just want to get it out of the way. So you are an Associate Professor of Risk Management at Temple. So I would consider you an expert at not making risky investments. But you are now the owner of a bar.
Yeah. But if you think about it like this, risk management as a discipline is not, do not take risk.
Okay.
It's decision making under uncertainty, meaning that you make a decision. We make decisions all the time. You might bet on a football game. You might decide to open up a business, etc. You just don't know what the outcome's going to be. Risk management is do not take risks. It's thinking about taking calculated risks.
Got it.
And so some people might say, well, you own a bar. That's kind of odd for risk management. Somebody who comes from that field.
Yeah.
But my response might be, who better? Because
you can kind of
I'm going to take the approach to the business different than somebody who is just, hey, I want to start a business, etc.
Definitely.
So my approach to it, you have the saying, high risk, high reward. So it's not do not take risk, it's smartly taking risks. And the simple fact is, in the alcohol business, whether it's liquor or beer, there are significant markups, but they come with risks. The liquor liability is some of the most expensive insurance out there, but beer and liquor markups are also some of the greatest.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of, do you manage that risk appropriately? But in no way, shape, or form is it do not ever take a risk.
Okay, I like that. So can we talk about how, you said you're coming up on the, 5-year anniversary? 7 years?
Seven. So I bought Interstate September 6th, 2017. So in a few days, on September 7th, 2024, it'll be our 7th year.
Cool, and it was Interstate before that as well?
Yeah, so the previous owner took a bar that had actually been shut down.
Okay.
And, I would say regentrified it, so to speak. It was an older school, what I would call the Fishtown of old type of bar. Mm-hmm. And he bought it and turned it into what we would probably, I don't know if we use the term anymore, but gastropub. Nice beer menu, above average bar food. Not fine dining by any stretch, but decent.
Definitely,
sort of. And he had it, I believe he did that in 2011.
Okay.
So he had it for about 6 years before we purchased it.
Cool, and it was the same setup, the little outdoor. The outdoor section is completely different now, but.
Yeah, we bought the property next door, so it allowed us to expand our outside.
Massive. It's great.
But there was a little bit of an outside space. There's been some subtle differences, but at its core, it is very similar to the bar that we purchased.
Cool, and
you grew up in Fishtown as well. How close were you to that area?
I grew up a block and a half from
That's crazy.
from the bar, and if my grandparents, God rest their souls, they were alcoholics, and they grew up around the corner. That was their bar.
Wow.
So that was where they went. So it's kind of, fate brought us to that point. It was never, I didn't buy that specific bar because it was the bar that my grandparents went to. It was just an opportunity presented itself. The opportunity to invest where I grew up seemed really cool. And I like beer, and it's a good beer bar. And it came, The other thing about a bar is, as beer focused as I am, it did come with a signature drink, and that's what a lot of bars aspire to. To create a house cocktail is not easy. To have one that people are very loyal to so it had one, and that was a big, not the only, but it was definitely attractive in terms of that it came with a ready-made drink that it was somewhat known for.
Were they doing that from the start, or like how did?
No, I mean, I obviously I didn't own it at the time. The bartender who started it has reached out and we've communicated periodically, but essentially, take a step back. Pennsylvania in general, it had roughly around the late 70s, there were a lot of dairies in PA, and milk consumption was continuously going down. And dairies were looking for other ways to make money. And since the equipment to make milk and the equipment to make iced tea was very similar, many dairies pivoted to also make iced tea. And they would put them in milk cartons. Mm-hmm. There are brands in Pittsburgh, Scranton, Lancaster that were very popular. And in Philadelphia, Arctic Splash was the brand of choice from Lehigh Valley Dairies. And as Fishtown changed as a neighborhood, New Fishtown were kind of like, why are these white cartons that say Arctic Splash kind of littered everywhere? Because Philadelphians and Fishtowners were kind of litter bugs. They would just throw it. And one of the bartenders was like, we should make a drink out of that. And they basically Long Island it, so to speak. And that's where it kind of started. And then it kind of went from there.
I mean, it's cool. It's literally like the Arctic Splash, like a cult classic kind of in.
Yeah.
Not anymore, I guess, but.
Well, Arctic Splash in the carton form doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And in fact, at one point there were about 20 or so dairies in Pennsylvania that put iced tea in cartons. Very regional, very loyal, very local. But at this point, there's only 2 left that still put them in cartons. They all still make iced tea. Like Wawa is an example of it. Wawa was one of those dairies. But they tend to put it in plastic now.
So the cartons that because you guys still have cartons there. Are those?
Well, we do them occasionally because there is a dairy in Pottsville,
okay,
which is also the home of Yuengling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they do it, but their distribution is mostly local.
Okay.
But we've established a little bit of a relationship with them. So what we do is typically what we do is festival season, which is typically in Philadelphia, May and September. Maybe it bleeds into October where you'll see the Fishtown Festival or various festivals. We'll go to some. The Italian Market Festival in May is a great one. And for those, we like to break the cartons back out.
Definitely.
So we go up there and we get them. They don't deliver down here, so you can't really, it's complicated to do it all year. But basically, you'll see us do the cartons in May and September. And because we get so many of them, they'll pop up back up at the bar during that time. So, but really, the only 2 that are left, there's Gears, which is in Pottsville, and there's actually one in Pittsburgh called Turner's. And if you think Arctic Splash is popular in Philly, Turner's has a cult following in Pittsburgh. Like they're very, very, very popular.
Is there anybody in Pittsburgh that's making the iced tea cocktail?
No, but someone might show up soon with it. So no. There's a brewery out there called Iron City.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they make a malt version, which is basically a twisted tea variant. But I think, and I'll use our friends at Surfside as an example, tea is best mixed with liquor, not beer.
Definitely.
And I think that's sort of the challenge, and that's why Surfside has had tremendous success. Because iced tea, I think, lends itself more to being mixed with vodka or other liquors. I don't think malt or an iced tea flavored beer is.
Iced tea is so light. It's water with like some tea and sugar.
Yeah, I just think if you do a taste test of us or Surfside next to Twisted Tea, you're gonna pick us or Surfside.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think part of Twisted Tea Light is getting popular right now, and I think it's less about people being healthy and just it tastes close to what you guys have.
But I would say again though, I'm not an expert on the numbers, but I gotta think that Surfside is significantly eating into the market share of Twisted Tea.
It's the number 4 RTD in the whole country of any brand.
Yeah, but what I'd say is that Boston Beer, which owns Twisted Tea, has kind of developed the name. I think it's Sun Cruiser or Beach Cruiser or something. Like they're going after Surfside space because Surfside.
Oh, really?
Surfside.
They created another product that's like that?
Yeah, it's a liquor. It's a vodka based one.
Oh, I
and
have
it's,
that
and it's,
before. I didn't know that
it's
they owned
clearly based on
Didn't
going
know
after
that was
Surfside.
them. But yeah, I've seen that
it's them.
before, too.
It's them, and it's because Surfside is chewing, especially in the Philadelphia market, really chewing into their business. Surfside's it's a good product. It's low ABV. It's a sort of low calorie drink, but it's good. It's very good. It's different than us, but and I think it's kind of interesting is you got in Philly you got two businesses that are very close to each other that are trying to go after the liquor tea market, so to speak.
Yeah, so I mean, can we talk about kind of the rise? I mean, you said it was the signature drink, but I guess during COVID, like everything was shut down, and then you really saw a pop. Is that where you saw like? This
What I'd say is when we bought the bar, the tea was obviously an aspect of it that we were interested in, and we thought that while it had a nice cult following, it wasn't fully capitalized upon.
Yeah.
One of the first things we did ever with the bar was actually to copyright the term Fishtown Iced Tea. It was not copyrighted with the idea that whatever we canned. Mm-hmm. It was copyrighted so that other bars couldn't steal the name. Anybody can take any type of iced tea in a carton or a plastic jug and put liquor in it and call it whatever they want, as long as they didn't call it a Fishtown Iced Tea. So that's why we originally copyrighted it. So we buy Interstate in 2017, and 3 years later COVID comes along. Now during the COVID times, we were limited to selling drinks to go.
You had great beer, by the way. I remember I would stop buying at Hill Farmstead from you guys too.
We would get some nice beers on tap during that time too. And what we saw was the tea went from cult following to a little bit more popular because iced tea in a carton really lends itself well to walking around and drinking it outside. Yeah. And at that time, it was also at the time where we started to see RTDs pop up, and my friend John, who was working at the time at Jacqueline's, was like, you might be able to flip this to a canned version, and that was sort of kind of where it started. It was never intended, the idea was not to can it. It was just to protect it, so to speak, in terms of the copywriting of it. And I think a lot of businesses sometimes get created out of difficult situations, whether it's a recession or whatever. And I would say the Fishtown Iced Tea was born out of COVID. Like it being in a can, I don't know if it would have happened if it wasn't necessarily for COVID. Maybe not, because of the proliferation of RTDs. But during that time, we're like, people really like this. Whether it's the nostalgia factor or the taste, I think it's both. It went from there. And
so the iced teas came out in 2022. So that it took about a year and a half, 2 years to kind of roll that out? Yeah, because I think that, so when we agreed that we would license it to John was in charge of he owns the distillery, he was going to make it. I think there was a lot of, how do we do it? Do we get somebody to make it for us, etc.? And the decision was made that he was going to start a distillery and from scratch. And so that requires a little bit of a longer runway, as opposed to because there are businesses out there in PA that are what we call co-packers, which will basically make whatever you want, and they'll do everything for you. But you do lose a little bit of control, and obviously you have to pay them. And the thought was that he would create it from scratch, especially because it may sound silly, but we wanted to make sure it was made in Philly. Definitely. And that was an important point, and there really wasn't anybody in Philly doing it. And the drink is made in Philly. So, that was kind of why we went down that road of licensing it to him and him doing it himself. That's great. We need to get back to craft beer at some point. It's just like, this is like very interesting, and like with the whole, RTD laws kind of changing. But I guess at your heart, Interstate Drafthouse is a beer bar. Like, was it kind of that same beer level that before you guys bought it? Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, when I originally bought it with my co-owner Bobby would be what I would call a quintessential beer nerd. I like craft beer, but he is someone who would trade rare beers with people. Like, he was really plugged into the scene. Yeah. And I would say that he did a great job
of getting all of the hard to get stuff on tap at Interstate. And so yeah, we're always a craft beer bar at heart. When he left after COVID, I still do that, but I felt that at times, our lines are programmed by style. So you wouldn't ever come into Interstate and we have 16 tap lines and 8 of them would not be variants of an IPA.
Yeah.
There may be a hazy, there may be a double IPA, there may be a basic IPA, maybe a West Coast, but half the line is not going to, you're going to have options.
Yeah.
Me personally, I like wheat beer. We always have one on. We always have either our lager or pilsner. We always have at least one sour. The goal is to make sure that we have something for everyone. And I've started to skew a little bit more towards, me personally, I've gotten the sense that I program a little bit more than Bobby would local. There's nothing knocking Hill Farmstead or any of these great beers that might come out of Vermont or other areas, but to a certain extent, my customers I think appreciate local, and I tend to want to support that a little bit more. Now we have Pliny the Elder pretty much on tap all the time.
Yeah.
So there are some exceptions, but to me, I do like to try and do as much local as I can.
I mean, you're keeping the distillery in Philadelphia. I think, like you said, that means a lot to people that live here.
Yeah, I'm a Philly guy. I grew up here, and I just think that it's not to knock other beers from other areas, but it just seems to me that if I can program as fresh as possible within reason, and it's good, and I think there's variations. I mean, at a certain point, to me, there's variations, but you pass a point where this is a good beer, and then some of them move to excellent, but not everybody's,
you hit a certain level that it's good enough, and I think fresher then makes a bigger difference.
And I also, if you look at our prices relative to other, I think we're still kind of cheap.
Very cheap.
And I can do. At one point, we had Pliny. We used to sell in a pint for $9, but on Mondays it was $5.
Wow.
I had to move it to a goblet, but I lowered. But the goblet's only $6. It's still way cheaper. I mean, I see what other people do. It's way cheaper. I just, I want people to be able to afford to come.
Yeah.
And I want to have beer for whatever anybody wants. And sometimes people just want cheap stuff. And it's okay. Like, I'm not one of those people who, like, we have Miller Lite and Tecate and Genesee in cans. And they're not that expensive. But, beer is what somebody wants. I used to be a little bit more like, oh, how could you drink that? But, at a certain point, it's just...
People like different things.
Well, yeah, one of our best-selling beers is Reading Premium, and we sell it pretty cheaply. And then on the other end is Pliny, and
Wait, what is it?
Reading Premium. It's basically Sly Fox's like Budweiser clone.
Okay, all right.
And it's $5, and the pint's $20. And at happy hour it's $4. But some people want cheap beer, but they still want it on draft. So we got that. And at the other end of the spectrum is Pliny. And they're like the only two beers that are what I call dedicated lines. And everything else in the middle just constantly gets rotated.
Just
with an emphasis on PA. But I if I like something, like personally, I like St. Adam's Oktoberfest. I like it. And so I put it on. And I like Dogfish Pumpkin. And I put it on. And then I look to see what else is local. And I just rotate it through. But I mean... with some of these bars or some of these breweries, they don't necessarily have wide distribution. So, if I put some beer on from Lancaster or Scranton and it's never been on tap in Philly, I think that's cool.
Definitely. I mean, I went in there the other night. You guys have the pumpkin beer on already. Mm-hmm. Is that a year-round thing, or you guys?
No. So Dogfish Pumpkin usually starts to arrive like mid-October, mid-August rather.
What about the Oktoberfest? Same thing.
I haven't put Oktoberfest on yet.
Okay.
But that'll pop up soon. But believe it or not, Dogfish Pumpkin is one of the. It actually has pumpkin in it.
Yeah.
It's also a brown ale, which I like.
Yeah.
And brown ales are not easy to get. Not everybody does them. And it's a brown ale that will sell. most pumpkin beers are usually lagers just with pumpkin spice added to it.
Yeah.
So Dogfish is part of Boston beer and it's part of it, but it's still good beer.
Yeah.
I still think it's good. And here's the
part of
reality.
the company, but
It
seeing what
sells. It
he's
sells.
selling for
Dogfish
craft
pumpkin
beer,
sells.
Yeah.
Dogfish pumpkin will sell. I'll take 3 kegs of that and I'll basically it's basically September, October, November because to me pumpkin beer it should be available to Thanksgiving is pumpkin, right? So
Yeah.
I maybe around Thanksgiving I start switching to the Christmas beers, but I would like to see pumpkin beer still on tap in November. So I kind of ease it in and I'll get a few kegs of it, but it's a brown ale, and that's one of the reasons I like it, and it sells. I mean, in reality, what you have to understand is like for me personally, I don't like hoppy beer. I don't like IPAs at all. I like wheat beer. I like lagers. I like Belgians. I like sours. But it doesn't matter what I like. It's what the customers like. And Dogfish pumpkin will sell. And it's it's a real pumpkin beer. And I'm not knocking what anybody else does, but a lot of these pumpkin beers are really just they take their regular lager and they kind of pumpkin spice it up. It's different.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of the early ones.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, Sam Caggione, you said, owned by Boston Beer, but I mean, he was one of the originators. So it was like pumpkin craft beer in Philadelphia back when craft beer wasn't a thing.
Yeah, I read his book about entrepreneurship. It's a good book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, with Sam Adams or Dogfish, they're not local, so I don't necessarily program them all the time, but they have some seasonals that are good. I mean, years ago, my co-owner Bobby and I blind sampled a bunch of Oktoberfests. We had no idea what it was. We picked Sam Adams. We had German ones, and we did it with a couple customers. Sam Adams won. Take it for what it is. It won.
Yeah, you do some fun things like that at the bar. Do you still do like that type? Maybe not that exactly, but I know for Christmas you guys do. You said the 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah, typically I try to get so a couple things like with Christmas. Usually, the day some Christmas beers will start to trickle on before, but I'll say I open them up on Black Friday. On Black Friday, all beers are $5. Period. No matter what. And you might find St. Bernardus Christmas on it. Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of a way, and then I do the same thing for the day after Christmas, Boxing Day.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea I kind of got from Memphis Tap Room, which is closed, and they gave me permission to kind of do it, because they used to have a Boxing Day, beer fest. So it's like, come in on Black Friday, get the Christmas beer started, and then on December 26th, let's clear them out. But I like stuff like that, and then we do Mad Elf Night at one point during the Christmas season, and we cellar it. So every year we buy 2 kegs of Mad Elf, but the kegs we buy that year won't hit the tap line. It's like current Mad Elf is not as good as 1 or 2 year old Mad Elf. Mm-hmm. So we'll do Mad Elf Night at some point in December, and this year we will have 22 and 23. And you can have those in a flight, and then add a couple other Christmas beers. And we'll have St. Bernardus 12, Steel and Knocked. I've been able to get some of those. That comes from Dudal. That's not an easy beer to get. It is pricey, but it's a what is it? It's a pale ale, but it's very unique. And we'll get that. So we'll throw on some Christmas ones. But yeah, we like to try. I mean, we try to make it fun. Mm-hmm. As best we can. January we'll do Nugget Nectar with Troegs. So we were able to get a nitro keg of Nugget Nectar.
Wow, what's that taste like?
Well, I don't like it. So you can't ask me. Customers love it. Apparently they think it's really good. Nugget Nectar is not my cup of tea, but people really like it, and it'll go quick. And really, I mean, for the most part, I have a nitro line. But nitro beers are a little harder to get than you usually used to be able to get. Sometimes you can find an IPA, but IPAs they don't pour right all the time. So I it's just Guinness most of the time.
Yeah.
But when I get something like Nugget, like Guinness will disappear in January for however long Nugget Nectar will be on the nitro line.
Nice.
So we'll do different things like that. I mean, I like to say that I have a savvy beer customer, but at the same time, I also have a very basic one. The number one selling beer by far is Reading Premium. It's not even close.
So, I mean, your clientele, is it mostly regulars come in? Regular locals?
It really all matters, but I think some people look at it and they're like, all right, because it says Sly Fox Reading Premium. It's, I don't know, 4.5%. It's $5 and it's 20 ounces. And it's a draft beer. I mean, it's better than Budweiser.
Yeah.
I mean, is it better than, no, but it's good for it's value. Right?
Yeah.
We call it value beer. I'm not going to disrespect it by calling it cheap.
I mean, that's why they made it.
It's a value beer.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of the way, but they're going to take way more craft into it than Budweiser or Miller Lite's made.
Definitely.
And with those beers, you're never going to see them on tap in Interstate cans. You can have a can of Miller Lite or a bottle of Miller High Life.
And doing their tap lines.
And look, there's nothing wrong with Miller High Life. I mean, and again, it's what you want, what you like. I mean, I don't want to be a bar that says, you could never sell that. No, if that's what you want. I mean, I'm not going to sell Bud Light, but Miller Lite and Miller High Life. Genesee Cream Ale, I mean, Cream Ale is one of them truly unique American styles.
Definitely.
So, I mean, and Jenny Cream Ale, we sell for $3 a can.
Oh my gosh. Cole's out there.
So, I mean,
stomping his feet.
you can come and, you can drink what you want. I mean, and I think that's the sign of a good, there's a difference between the bar that has the best beer versus the bar that might be the best beer bar.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And a good beer bar should have something for everyone. And I think that's the overall philosophy.
Definitely. I think Monk's might be the best beer bar I've been to, but there's a time and a place for it. I'm not going to Monk's every single night.
Yeah, Monk's is where I fell in love with beer. But you can come Interstate or other bars that might be like us. Somebody can come in and get a fancier beer, and somebody else can have I mean, I don't know. Does Monk's sell Miller Lite cans?
I don't know. I mean, they definitely don't sell city-wise.
Right. So we sell city-wise for sure. I mean, but it's also it's a blend. I mean, yeah, Monk's has got the best beer. Or you go out to Teresa's in Wayne. You look at their list, especially for Belgians. You're like, whoa, look at this.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can program that in Fishtown. And two, it's just they're different spots. We're a bar. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of seating and we have way more tables to eat than we do have spots at our bar. But I still think of us as a bar.
Definitely, I would still consider it as well.
And so at our core, we want to give people options.
GoTab is the all-in-one POS that breweries love. From tap rooms to brew pubs, GoTab makes managing orders, events, payments, and operations a breeze. With features like membership and loyalty programs, shared tabs, mobile ordering, and more, you can serve your guests faster and keep them coming back. Plus, GoTab works seamlessly with the tools you already use, so no need for costly hardware upgrades. If you're ready to take your brewery to the next level, check out GoTab, the POS that's built for breweries.
Do you think, so we talked briefly about you started this beer club. What part of this podcast is connecting craft beer to Gen Z? Gen Z or craft beer is having a problem, they just cannot connect to the younger generation. There's some sort of disconnect, and I think it's some sort of disconnect with social media or something, but what was it like with the college kids getting the craft beer, and then also with the bar? When younger kids come in, or?
Well, the club was before I owned a bar.
Okay.
And the club was when I was probably a bigger craft beer fan than I am now. And it's not, the joke I always tell people is, I think I drank more beer before I owned the bar. And it's just because you're around it a lot.
Yeah, you did.
And what you do is you tend to sample stuff, but once you own a bar, you tend not to socially go out and drink as much.
Yeah.
But I think that some of it just sort of, I don't know how it kind of came about. It was some students who had talked to me, and somebody wanted to start a club. And to start a club at Temple, you have to have a faculty advisor. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Our club didn't do much beyond, which I think were pretty cool. We did 6-pack swaps. And what they were, because I was like, well, if we're going to do something, and what we did was maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, we would show up somewhere and somebody would bring a 6-pack of something they liked, and they would present it. Like, here, I like X. And then you would put it in the middle, and then we drew numbers, and then we went around the room, and you could take one bottle of something.
I like that.
And at the time, there was and I think this is part of, not the only, but part of the reason that craft beer had such a great, because Philly's the best beer city in terms of access. Mm-hmm. But there was a journalist, his name was Don Russell, but he had a column called Joe Sixpack.
Yeah.
And I reached out to him. He actually wrote an article about the club, but he came to one of our 6-pack swaps. And, it was just like kind of about like learning and appreciating, the various aspects of beer. Mm-hmm. And somebody would come and say, this is Dogfish pumpkin, and I like this because it's a brownie or whatever. And then we would slide it all in the middle, and then it was a way for people to try different things without breaking the bank for a college student, so to speak. And it was educational to some extent. But, with that, I can say me personally, when I bought the bar, I kind of gravitated that way, and there wasn't really a lot of legacy. And I don't hear a lot of students asking me about beer anymore. They might ask about that, the tea, but I don't think that the average college student is drawn as much. There are exceptions, but I don't think they're as drawn to craft beer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know if craft beer is going through that cycle, because if you go back and look at beer in the United States pre-Prohibition or even post it, there were so many different varieties and so many breweries all over the place. And then, the Budweisers of the world came in and basically started making yellow fizzy water. And then by the 60s and the 70s, it had, in 60s, 70s, 80s was a wasteland. And then in the 90s, it started to come back. And I don't know if that cycle is, I think one of the challenges is there seems to be an awful lot of breweries.
Mm-hmm. It gets confusing.
Yeah. And I also just think that...
Just overload.
Yeah, it's a constant battle for shelf space. And I think that you're just like, well, and we have these whole, this new brewery, and they make this, and it's got this untapped rating and all that stuff. But, some of these other breweries have been around for a while, Victory or Troegs or Sly Fox, they still make good beer. Or they might not have the scores that some random brewery in, Idaho has. But it's just, I don't know if that can be supported, though. And I'd say is what I would call the beer nerd. I mean, I have beer fans, but I don't know if the beer nerds are around as much anymore. And I don't think you can run a business sustained on beer nerds.
Agreed. Yeah, I think I don't know what the disconnect is either, but I do think there's a lot of competition, and it's one of the things that I always see is when someone my age goes to a store, there's so many options on the shelf.
So many options, but I look at it, so I like wheat beer. Okay. There might be some bad wheat beers, but I don't think anybody's going, oh my God, this is the wheat beer. That's and it's either good or it's not, right? Like it's sort of like in a class, it's pass or fail.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are getting A's, but a B beer is fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is good. This is good. I'm hanging out on the beach. I'm watching a football game. It's good. And I just think that it's harder and harder to sell beer. I think if you're a new brewery, if you're it's one thing to have a brewery and it's all about getting people to your spot. That's fine, and that could. But if you're like, oh, we're gonna can it, and we're gonna get beer stores, it's tough. The shelf space is tough. And it's really gonna be hard to push others out of the way. Mm-hmm. I think it's gonna be really hard to start a brand new brewery from scratch and think you're gonna can it and get a lot of people to buy it.
That's what I'm doing right now.
I think that you can can it and sell it out of your spot.
Well, I don't have a spot. I'm starting off contract brewing. But yeah, there's not much margins there. It's like...
Well, it's not just that. I mean, okay, so you want to go into a beer store and you go in and they're going to be like, well, if they take you, they're going to take somebody else off.
Yeah.
And that's what you're dealing with. And then you'll have the big guys that are going to try to push you out. And then if you look at Pennsylvania as an example, you've got this proliferation of supermarkets, and even Wawa, they're getting R licenses.
Mm-hmm.
So they put 2 tables there, and you can sit and eat your hoagie there. But now they qualify as an R. They're really just 6-pack stores.
Yeah, we talked to.
And
Chris
they
Cooper.
won't. They're interested in the big guys. They want it to be easy. They want it to be quick. They want it packaged nice and neatly. And it's really hard to be a small craft place to get Giant to sell you, or Whole Foods to sell you, or Wegmans to sell you.
So Chris Kuhn was saying like it's a constant battle between like wholesalers and grocery stores, because they give like one person an inch, then they give the next person like a mile. So like grocery stores got that they're now able to put 2 seats in and they're able to sell alcohol. Now wholesalers are getting a bone. They can now sell RTDs.
Well, no, beer stores can, not wholesalers.
Okay,
Wholesalers
yes,
are completely.
yes.
Wholesalers are
To
completely.
beer stores.
Wholesalers were completely cut out of the RTD process. The law actually says they can have like a retail location. Like some wholesalers have retail locations. Like
Yeah.
Shang's is an example. Is a they do a lot of Belgian stuff. They're out of
It's an
Emmaus.
importing distributor, right?
Right.
You can do that.
But they also have a store. They have a store where you can go and buy anything. You can buy Budweiser, you can buy all their Belgian stuff. They can sell RTDs in the store, but they're forbidden from distributing it. The law actually took the big guys in Philly. It's Panarigo and Muller. They're not allowed to touch it. The bill started with them actually being involved, but someone got them cut out. And I know that someone probably is, but I think big canned cocktail company in Philly. But I don't have a problem with that, because the big wholesalers have been really pushing around small breweries for a long time.
I mean, they can do whatever they want. It's the laws are just set up that way. But
Yeah, and it makes a challenge. Like if you want to think about it, if you want to talk about like beer and how it gets to the shelf, like one of the appeals of Dogfish pumpkin is it's a brown ale. It's a tough product to sell, but the pumpkin one will sell. But if I wanted a brown ale from somebody, you almost have to go local and get it from like Attic or somebody like that does it themselves. Because a big beer distributor, they're not gonna take a Meinbach. They're not gonna take a Rauch beer.
Yeah.
They're not gonna take a brown ale. They're not gonna take a best bitter. They're just because it's niche.
Yeah,
and that's not
makes
what they're
sense.
interested in. And that's the challenge is if you're a distributor, if you're a brewery and you say, okay, well, I'm gonna work with one of you larger ones, you're now subject to their whims, and you can't say, hey, big wholesaler, will you take my brown ale? No. Okay, well, Interstate or Memphis Tap Room or Monk's or whoever wants my brown ale. So can I sell it to them if you don't want to? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, look, this isn't working out. Can I leave you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, even when you get married, you get divorced. But for some reason in Pennsylvania, if you give your product to a wholesaler, they have you unless they let you go. Not it. And that's a challenge for breweries, and it's not easy to, it's not a big deal for the Dogfishes, the Sam Adams of the world, and it doesn't matter at all to the Budweisers of the world. But for smaller ones,
well, they're kind of plugged into that system, and they're kind of built
yeah,
on
the
that.
3-tier system is kind of
Yeah.
what they call it, and it has positives. They're like, it's not easy to deliver stuff, especially kegs, right? And those wholesalers kind of got it down to a science, right? So you look at it and you're like, well, they can. If I'm going to sell 100 kegs and they'll deliver it for you, it's worth paying them. But it's when a lot of craft brewing is built on niche, unique styles and things like that, and the wholesale distribution model just isn't based on that.
So, you're destroying my whole world right now. we're recording my podcast after this. I'm gonna explain. So I am wholesaling through Penn. I'm opening up a contract brewery out of Workhorse. You're looking at me like this is a mistake. My thought process was if I want to open up a brewery, I need to either open up my own production space and sell on premise, or I need to be distributing beer elsewhere. To open up a production space, you're either moving into some place that has already existed, which is you're waiting for that, or you're building your own space that costs $2 million. So with the way that getting loans is right now, I didn't want to take a risk on like taking a giant loan, or I gave up more than half of my business because I have no money. I've been brewing beer my entire career.
Mhm.
So for me, the lesser two evils was to sign with a wholesaler, and I still own the entire business. So then I can eventually move into somebody else's production space when that becomes available and sell on premise.
Yeah, but what you gotta hope your product's better than others, so
Yeah.
that people will select it
Yes.
over other options, and that at least in Pennsylvania, they got you as long as they want you.
Definitely.
So if you have a falling out,
Yeah, it was a giant holy shit, am I about to sign my whole life away to this,
yeah. Now and it depends. Like I can tell you, there are some wholesalers, and the liquor's different than beer. But like I know that.
How does liquor wholesaling work? Is it still a 3-tier system? Only are there liquor distributors?
In New Jersey and other states, yeah. Because
Okay.
in other states, you can go to the store and you can buy beer and liquor in the same spot. So Pennsylvania is an anomaly to some extent.
Yeah.
But what I've heard about other states is if you have products not selling, they just cut you loose. They just cut you loose. From what I've heard in Pennsylvania, though, that's not as true.
Yeah.
You
I mean, they don't get in trouble, so like, you might as well just hold on to it. Like, they're not losing anything, so.
well, there's a brewery I know. I'm not gonna say the name. They're based in New Jersey, and they make a beer. And New Jersey sometimes gets divided up: south, central, north. And they told me a story one time that they had a falling out with whoever handles them in the north. They will not release them, but they will not take their product anymore. They won't buy. They just sit on you, and they can do it. They got you. You can, if they decide I don't like you anymore, unless they release you, you're done.
Yeah.
And well, how do they release you? Well, they may ask you to write a big check. They got you.
I mean, and like
It's an evergreen contract. And to me, because I heard a distributor say to us once, or say to the distiller about the tea, they're like, well, we don't like to enter into a relationship thinking there's, because some like if you're I don't know, Hill Farmstead, and you're gonna come to certain states, like I don't think it's legal in PA, but in New Jersey you can have an opt out. You can say I can opt out.
Well, it's
And in Delaware, there is no evergreen. But if you've got enough cachet, you can say, look, I'll deal with you, but if things go sideways, I want out, and here are provisions. Well, I heard a distributor in a discussion very similar to say, yeah, but you don't want to enter a relationship saying, well, here's how you can get out. And my response to that was, even if I got married, I am married, but I'd get a prenup.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but so you're basically telling me that some deal with my beer or my liquor or whatever needs to be, you can never sever the relationship. But if I'm going to get married, and they have a monopoly, and it's in particular, it's particularly strong in PA.
Yeah.
And with the canned cocktail law, you go look up the Pennsylvania Brewers Alliance. I think they did not like the RTD bill. And go look at some of the letters they drafted.
Yeah, the Brewers of Pennsylvania.
Well, the Beer Distributors Alliance.
Okay.
Not necessarily the beer distributors, but the wholesalers.
Yeah.
Because they got cut out, and they're not used to getting cut out. And they got cut out of this. Basically, it's the state. I think the original bill when it was hoped was that the LCB would not be part of it, and it turned out not to be the case. And they didn't just not give it to the beer wholesalers; they forbade them.
Specifically,
It's in the law. It says
Wow.
wholesalers are not allowed to distribute it. Like they forbade them.
do you think that's a move towards the state having laws that are more open towards people stepping away from distributors? Do you think that's them recognizing
I don't
that this is-
know. I don't know. I mean, the state has relaxed certain things with beer, like you don't have to buy cases and things like that. I just think though, in most instances, in any business, you don't have lifetime contracts.
Yeah.
It just is not
Yeah.
normal. It's just not the standard. Now, you could sign a 5-year contract and you could have a penalty, but if you have a cell phone with Verizon or Comcast, they don't say to you, this is lifetime.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. Now, a wholesaler might say, well, if we invest in your brand and all that stuff, that's fine, but you can insist on 5-year, 7-year contracts. But lifetime contracts, I would never personally ever want to sign a lifetime contract for anything, let alone, I'm a brewer,
Yeah.
and I look at that and say, it's my baby, I made this beer. But the sale of it is controlled by somebody else who doesn't like it or whatever, and it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Thank you. Everything's going smoothly right now. I haven't started selling anything, but yeah, I'm happy, Penn.
What I'd say is there's a
but-
difference though. You see, you know Bill Kowaleski,
Yes.
and one of the things Bill said to me before is that so Bill was an art major.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a business professor. I was a
Yeah.
business student, and he was like, there's a lot of art majors that make beer because beer's art.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges I see, because we have a collective of temple business owners, a lot of artists own their own businesses. If you're a photographer, you do pottery, you end up a lot of times owning your own studio, but you haven't been trained in business. And I think that's sort of the challenge is look at this beer, it's beautiful, and it's a work of art, and it is, but when you pivot to selling it, there's a lot of sharks out there.
There's sharks, but also, like, the one thing with wholesalers is, distributing beer is running a whole nother business. Like, the same way that, like, you own a bar or brewery, running the tap room is basically like running a whole nother business than what your normal business is. And wholesale distribution is a whole nother type of business. And to invest in trucks and then to hire people
It's
and then to,
complicated.
it's to
complicated.
me, it's like the risk of, I might get fucked over by this. I worked at Victory for a number of years, and they had a great relationship. I've seen the work that they did, and I felt comfortable kind of like getting in, and I know I can grow with them.
Yeah, what I'd say is delivering beer sucks,
Yes.
especially kegs.
Yes. We had.
And not only that, but Interstate is an old Philadelphia property. So you pull up to it, you open up those doors. Now we have installed. It's got wheels, and you can slide the keg in.
Yeah.
It's hard, but as far as properties like ours, we're probably one of the better ones. But like some of them, they gotta lower them down. Like
In the middle of Center City with all the
Right.
traffic.
Right. So delivering beer is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I think wholesalers are great if you got the volume.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be really hard for niche products to, the larger wholesalers, the bills get paid by Bud, Coors, Miller.
Definitely.
They pay the bills.
Yeah.
And you've got to, if I was giving you advice, you got to go to those beer stores and have them ask for your product. Like you gotta.
That's what I'm doing.
You gotta work that.
Yeah,
like, you gotta have them request it because the beer reps, and there are a lot of good beer reps. Penn, my rep's great. Origlio, my rep's great. They got a lot of competing priorities.
Yeah.
They got a lot of products to sell. So you're gonna want to pull it through. So basically, what you want to do is you want to get your product in stores. In bars and stores where they're requesting it.
Definitely.
And then when that happens, then your rep will be like, all right, well, this beer is selling here and selling here, so maybe this is a conversation for here. And most of them have different reps for on-premise versus package. Package being the beer store.
Yeah. And
So they're two different things. And like what a beer store will take, especially in the suburbs, because there's more of them than in Philly. When you talk to them, it's a different conversation than me versus putting a keg on. Oh, yeah, I can take a keg. It's no big deal. I rotate them sort of constantly. But a beer store's got to give up shelf space. They only have their store doesn't expand, right? So the question is, why should yours replace somebody who's already there? That's your pitch, so to speak. That's sale. But if you can get them to pull it through, then it goes from there.
Do you want to hear my pitch?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm creating this exclusive brand where they're all, every single time it's brewed, it's a single batch release. So it's new recipes every single time it's brewed. So my plan is everyone talks about key accounts. I want to like amplify that where I'm only selling limited amounts to certain bars. So because I don't have my own tap room, I can treat these other outside accounts like quasi tap rooms where they give me a tap line and I'm selling beer through my social media at their bar just as much as they are. So I can pull in people to them every single month.
So are you kegs and cans?
Kegs and cans, but I'm like, cans are going to be going to bottle shops and like good beer stores. And then kegs are just like, select key accounts.
There's all kinds of different stores, right?
Yeah.
But for me, because I get visited by lots of sales folks,
Yeah.
etc. For the most part, what cans I have are going to be lower end, right? I don't take good cans.
Well, it's about
because if it's a good beer, it should be on tap.
yeah, I'm about a fifth of the package good is cans,
Okay.
and then the rest is kegs.
Well, I think that though, but if it's a bottle shop, like let's say in Fishtown Bottle Bar East,
Yeah.
I mean, Bottle Bar East has got great beer on tap, but
Yeah.
they've got all these choices in their fridge. So they're a different customer than me.
Yeah.
I don't sell a lot of 6-packs to go.
Yeah.
And so for me, a good beer should be on tap. And to me, it's sort of like if I'm somewhere, unless I don't think the draft lines are clean, right? I'm gonna drink draft beer.
Yeah.
Because I can drink anything at home.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
draft beer, whether it's in Interstate or any other bar. And for me, good beer is best on draft. It just is,
Definitely.
right? It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the cans.
No,
but
it's inherently better. It has less
Yeah.
TPO. It's like carbonation's perfect.
the experience, everything. So
Exactly.
to me, if you come to Interstate, it's gonna be like you like Miller Lite, and that's what you want. We'll have it for you. But but draft beer is kind of where it's at. Like especially if you want sort of that reputation. And the other part that you might want to do is if you build up a customer base, you have them go into places asking for it.
Definitely.
They go into Stones or wherever and they say, "Are you going to be carrying Space Cadet?"
Yeah.
And then they start kind of asking for it.
Yeah, and I'm only selling limited amounts to each bar, so it's like I want them to run out every month. So they're only giving me a little tiny bit of shelf space because I only have the one beer on at once. So they're not giving out my shelf space, and they're getting a limited amount. So if I can build up the customer base where they're going in and getting it, then it's going to be a race to them to get it, and then every month.
There's
space
never,
race.
as a business, there's
Space
nothing.
race.
There's nothing wrong with running out.
Yeah.
And we deal with this with our kitchen. I always say it's better to throw out than it's better to run out than throw out.
Exactly.
And it's part of it is you never know how busy you will or won't be, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we run out, we hand bread our chicken fingers. We run out on Sunday. Okay, well we didn't throw any out. And two, if somebody comes in on Sunday and they don't have them, to me that says they're good and they're fresh, right? And it's just, I would take that same approach is make it seem harder to get. And then at that point, it creates a little bit of a buzz. I'm lucky I got it, so to speak. But, less is more to some extent, unless you're Bubba's.
Definitely.
Right? I mean, at that point, it's a volume thing.
Yeah.
Scalable or whatever it is.
It becomes a commodity at that point. You're just
Yeah.
like moving it through to get people to
Yeah, but that's not what craft beer is really about.
No, it's about the experience.
Even in the good ones, let's throw Boston Beer out of the equation. But like Victory's big, but they're not that big. Do you know what I mean? Like they're still coming out with different beers. They're not selling their soul, so to speak. I mean, they're still making.
And the beer's still.
stuff.
I would put Premium Pills up against any of these other.
It's good beer.
Pills
It's good
out
beer.
there, yeah.
It's a good beer. And again, that goes back to the thing, like, good or bad. Once you cross it's good. And it's like, all right, well, is it? Oh my God, this is it's got a 4.3 on a tap.
I think once beer hits a certain threshold, it's about the experience that you're experiencing. Like if you're in a good state of mind and you're at a good bar, once beer's above that, then that's what makes the beer better. It's not like the beer itself.
Yeah. And me personally, I like choice. I like choice.
Definitely.
I've gone into many places where I look at it and I go, there's nothing I want.
Mm-hmm.
But you got 10 or 15 beers on tap.
Yeah.
Half of them are all IPAs, and then it's like, oh, I have this or I have that, but I'm like, and I look at it, I'm like, wow, there's, with all these tap lines, they don't have something I like,
Yeah.
so to speak. But it's, it is what it is. But IPAs sell, right? Hazy IPAs sell, period. They go, and you can't tell people what to like. If they like it, then they buy it.
Well, you have everything. I mean, you have the Millers, the Buds.
We do, but with certain things, I mean, Reading Freedom is the number 1 selling beer, and then the number 2 selling beer, it's not Pliny. It's whatever the hazy is. The hazy line clears a lot, right?
Yeah.
Always have to have a backup hazy immediately. Like, if a hazy IPA hits, I gotta make sure I got it, because I never know when it's gonna go.
I'm sure some people come in and just like, I want the hazy IPA. They don't,
Right. They say, well, give me whatever's hazy.
Yeah.
Versus like, if I got a keg of a sour, I know I'm good for 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks before that sour's gonna go.
I like the sour as, and even some Belgian beers, it's just like, this is there to round out the tap list. Like, this is not a volume mover, you're just like making it.
Yeah, and some customers, I'm a quality, not a quantity drinker. I don't care if I have to pay $9 for a draft of St. Bernard's 12. I'd rather have that, and that'll be the only one I drink.
Yeah.
And that's not every customer. Somebody might want to drink 4 Reading Premiums.
So this St. Barnabas 12, we had a Christmas episode, and I told them about like how that used to be West William, and I was like,
That's Leaden 12.
Yeah.
Well, no. St. Bernard's 12 is, yeah.
It's supposed to be the best beer in the world, and it's probably better because they were making it for 80 years before West William was making it, right?
Well, I've had Westie 12.
How's that? Did you go to the brewery to get it? Like, how did you?
No, I have bottles.
Wow.
I still have them.
Do you have the case, like the crate, the wooden crate?
No, so the monks there, they had a fire back in like 2010, and they released 6-packs in the United States.
Wow.
In 12/12/12, so it was December 12th, 2012. Never made it to New Jersey or PA regulations, but Delaware got it. I got down there and I got a bunch.
Nice.
And
is it still good?
Yeah, it's 10 years old, but it's I know how to properly sell a beer.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Cantillon too. I got a lot of bottles of that. If you gave me Westie and St. Bernard's is very good, but I still pick Westie.
Okay, alright.
And I've done the taste test. I poured bottles, but it's very, very similar, right? Because during World War II, I think
they stopped doing it. And
I think Westie 12 got their copper taken by the Nazis.
Yeah, it did.
But St. Bernardus was still going, and they were making it for them. They're both excellent, and that's the thing. That's the. I try to go as local as I can, and then I skew United States, but I will make room for some, especially at Christmas.
Yeah.
Especially at Christmas. St. Bernardus Christmas, great. The Saison du Pont, I can never remember it's I forget what the name is. That's great.
I know you're talking about like the little guy on the front.
Yeah, Course and Dump Christmas is great. Delirium Noel is good. And Skill and Oct from Dadal is phenomenal. And
are those every year you're getting kind of the same?
For the most part, if I can get them. For me, I have to get them through Shanies, but Shanies gets them from some importer. I think in Connecticut, maybe it's called Shelton. They're not easy to get, and they're expensive. So I gotta sell bottles for like $9, but people will drink.
It's part of the experience too, though. People, I don't think people are going like expecting not to pay a lot of money.
And it's a very Steel and Oct to me is very unique. It's unlike it's called a strong pale ale, but it's made with candy sugar. It's just different, and I only get a 1/6 of it. So even at its high price point, it still goes, so to speak. But we have a very sophisticated beer customer in Philly, and you can throw a lot of things, and a lot has to do with monks, and then I think a lot of it also has to do with Yuengling. Mm-hmm. So Philly is the best beer city for choice. There may be more cities that have more breweries per capita, but in terms of the options, even then, even 10 years ago, I might be in New York, and I'd be like, these beer choices suck.
Yeah.
They weren't that great.
Especially in Manhattan, there's nothing. I mean, a little bit better now, like Wine Tiger and stuff, but for the most part, there's not.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember who it was recently I was talking to me, and they're like, Philly is like where you want to test your stuff. Like if you can sell your product in Philly, you can
make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to 90s or whenever, but there was a time when Yuengling's share of the market was much greater than any other large city. In every other large city, it was dominated by the three, but not in Philly. Now, Yuengling, to me, is a far superior product to Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Budweiser. And so then Monk's and other beer bars come along, and the jump from Yuengling to them was an easier jump for Philadelphians than other cities.
Definitely.
That's if I want to go a professor into a case study, I think that Philadelphia as the best beer city has some to do with Yuengling. And then the Monk's was the first.
Yeah.
And then others started to pop up Monk's, the Memphis Tap Room, and these others, and then people were like, "Yeah, I want to try different stuff," and it kind of went from there. And I don't visit every beer bar in every city, but my gut tells me that Philly's got the best beer bars for a city.
There's also beer style bars. Like, it's a lot easier to drink and enjoy beer in like our types of bars than some New York bar.
Yeah, and it's you got a lot of bars, us or the late Memphis Tap Room or Monk's or other ones where the beer list is curated, and curated doesn't mean that it's the best. It just means there was thought put in it.
Yeah.
It isn't a beer list put together because the beer rep said this is a good one, right? There's thought in it. It's not just throw it against the wall. Like someone says, okay, well, this is why I'm putting it together. And I think you get that in a lot of bars in Philly that you just don't necessarily get everywhere. I think you go to some cities and, there will be a few of them that do that, but I think it's more the norm in Philly versus, in other cities, it's more of a rarity. That's like, oh, that's a really good bar. We kind of come expect, like, you just look at Fishtown, there's us, right? Barcade's list is curated. Bottle Bar East is curated. Johnny Brenda's is curated. Like these are someone is looking at what they're bringing in, and they're not overpouring a certain
Even
style.
Garage is like a drum college hookup bar, and they have a curated draft.
They do, and their draft list is smaller, but what they do have is a phenomenal selection of cans.
Yeah.
They got something for every. Like I can go in a garage and it might be in a can, but I'll find something I like.
Yeah.
But I could go to some place that's a quote beer bar, like let's say in the suburbs, and I'll look at it and I'll be like, there's something I want, right? Because it's like, well, it's sort of all variants of IPAs, so to speak. And then the wheat beer is Blue Moon. I'm drinking that. It's not. If I'm gonna drink a wheat, it should be made locally, as far as I'm concerned. Like there's so many decent wheat beers made locally. Why would I drink a Blue? I'm not gonna do it. If I'm gonna drink a beer that's in that, I'm gonna drink Yuengling because it's not made that far away. It's local. It's PA made.
Yep.
And so you look at those lists and you're just like, But that's just Fishtown. I'm sure if you go down to South Philly, past Young East, and other spots, you're gonna have spots that are doing the same thing.
Yeah, all across the city. So I think we're running out of time, but I want to ask you about one more thing. Evan's gonna love this. You sell flights at your bar, which for breweries normal, for bars not so normal. Like, did you start that? Was that always there? Like,
my previous owner Bobby started it,
okay.
And you know what? It might surprise you, and I don't know. We sell a surprisingly low amount of flights.
Really, I think people just aren't used to it being at a bar.
I don't know because I look at the beer list. What we do sell at Christmas time when we have so many different varieties, flights are a little bit more popular.
Yeah.
But I would say if I look at the numbers on the average night, we might sell 2 or 3 flights. I like flights.
And my roommate got one last week.
Well, because if you look at stuff and you're like, whoa, and especially for some of the higher octane beers, like if you come in at Christmas and you got Mad Elf, Cellars, beers, it's a good deal.
Yeah.
It's a good deal.
For sure.
But we don't sell as many as you would think. I don't know why that is. I don't know why. I wish we did sell more because I'm more interested. I want people to try stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't sell as many flights. So maybe you guys can help with getting more people to drink flights because to me, I think that's a great way to go.
He's not going to help.
You don't like flights?
No, I think that maybe this is I'm not a big beer snob, but I think that this might be a beer snob. I mean, it's like just enjoy the beer as it is. Like, you can go by, you can try other ones, but I think like just enjoying one full experience of one beer, I think is like more fulfilling than.
I think that for me, it would be, are there 4 ones I want to try?
Yeah.
And for me, there are times when I might go to a spot like, oh my god, but I can't drink 3 beers.
Yeah.
And I'm older. Like so to me, for me to get 4 4-ounce pours of 4 different ones I want to try.
Yeah, you're not gonna get 4 full pours.
I can't do it. But you might be right, because the data is we don't sell a lot of flights.
Yeah.
So, I think the thought was you try the flight and then you're like, well, I like this one the best, and that's what you get for your second. But you might be onto something. We don't sell a lot of flights.
That's how I am. Like, I will get a flight at most breweries, but when I go to like a beer bar, I don't usually go for a flight for whatever reason. I don't know.
Probably because the breweries have a lot more options,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to have a lot more varying styles than the typical beer bar. I think that's again where we might be a little different,
Mm-hmm.
where if you go in and you're like, oh, they have a sour, oh, they have a wheat, and a flight
you
might
get
lend
4
itself to
hazy
that.
IPAs.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, exactly. There's variants of pilsners, right?
Yeah.
Czech pilsner, German pilsner, like
Yeah,
so.
Miller Lite, easy.
I think it's because we do have some variety,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you will come in Interstate, there will at least be 1 or 2, depending on the time of year, and a sour. So like, I like sours, and to me too, some beers, like I like sours, but I don't want
100%.
to.
A sour can
A
get behind.
4-ounce sour is good for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like sours, but I don't want a pint of sour.
Yep.
Sorry. And so, but some beers, like a good Oktoberfest, like
Especially
a pint of that goes down fast.
I
A wheat beer in the summer, a pint goes down fast.
the fruited sours, I would take a flight of some fruited sours, but
I think it's the tart level.
Yeah.
Some sours are a little, but some of them are very acidic, and
Yeah.
we're just like, I like that, but like I like route beer, 4 ounces.
Yeah.
I don't want a pint of it.
I
I love route beer, but not that much. You know what I mean? It's nice, it's interesting,
Yeah.
but I would never want a pint of it ever,
Yeah. So
ever. Where you see all these other pickle beer, it's interesting at 4 ounces, but not a pint.
Yeah.
So I think that's flights to encourage people to experiment and try. Because if you order a pint and you're like, oh, this is awful, you just waste it, But if it's 4 ounces, you're like, I gave it a shot.
Yeah. All right. I feel that. Do you guys have any events coming up? Are there? You said that it's festival season. Are you guys gonna be pointing?
Yeah, well, I mean, September 28th, we're at the Fishtown Festival. That'll be
Cool.
Fishtown Teas. If you look at the fall, if you from a beer perspective, really the biggest thing that'll be lurking would be the Christmas beers on Black Friday and then Boxing Day,
Cool.
and then Mad Elf Night.
Cool. When is Mad Elf?
Mad Elf Night, it's always the Thursday after Thanksgiving, so I think that's somewhere around December 3rd or 4th. Don't
Yeah.
quote me on that. For the most part, the last few years, Troegs shows up and gives out chalices.
Wow.
And they're not, like, they give them away. And if you order, one of the pours, they'll give you a chalice. And
It's worth it.
Yeah, that's how.
well, I think. Well, first off, I think what's interesting is you do a flight and you take 2 year and 1 year and you see how they taste different. Then you can put 2 other Christmas.
Is it pretty
beers.
easy to tell?
I think it gets smoother, but at the same time, and you can ask, Troegs too. But I think but after 4 years, I don't know what happens to it.
Do you see it? Any variations from year to year? Like, does it shift a little bit?
I mean, there's people that say that. I mean, I just think I think if you taste the current year and you have no comparison, you're just like, oh, it's Mad Elf. But if you took it,
Side by side.
most people always agree 2 years. 2 years seems to be the sweet spot.
Okay.
So if you're getting it this year, 2022. But I have some regulars that brought in. They had Elf that was like 12 years old.
Wow.
It still tasted okay. Like it wasn't
It
bad.
wasn't cherry or anything like that?
It tastes very boozy
Okay.
to the point where you're like, is this beer or is this liquor?
Yeah.
But it's different. It's not bad.
It's experience.
Yeah, but I think that 2 years out is probably
Sweet spot.
for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And after 4 years, I chuck it. That's what I would do. So yeah.
Cool. So I guess we can follow you guys at Interstate Drafthouse on social media.
Yeah, Interstate Drafthouse on Instagram, and
Cool.
Fishtown Iced Tea is out there too.
Perfect.
So we're out there.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for coming on.
All right, thanks guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you can follow us at Brewdat, at the Brewdat Podcast, and see you guys in 2 weeks.